What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another late night in the Brew-Lab with me, Lone Fox, your Brewmaster-in-Chief. And I'm coming back at you with another episode of Spoiler Talk. It's a lot to get through today, a lot to get through. But unlike yesterday, there wasn't much more after I refreshed this morning. We ended off last night on the roadside reliquary, and now we're just only one extra card. But it's a pretty nice one. 3 mana, 2/2, at uncommon for a black spirit. And this isn't the first black spirit. And that's really good news to me. It's been a while since we've had any black spirits. It's been an Azorius thing with a tiny little bit of green for a while now. And there's now like black spirits and green spirits aplenty. So maybe some kind of Sultai spirit deck with enchantment synergies and things. I'm really looking forward to it. This one's pretty cool. It has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card if a creature died this turn. Otherwise, each player sacrifices a creature. There's a few of these at 3 mana that come in, and you can like either sacrifice it or and then the opponent has to sacrifice their thing, or you sacrifice a little token you have or something, and you end up with a 2/2 flyer. It's not bad. Then on to the next stuff. There was a bunch of these, and when I looked at them, I was like, whoa, look at these. And then I saw the symbol. These are all the commander stuff, so I won't be getting into this. It's not really my thing. But if you're interested, as always, I leave the link to this website in the video description down below. You should go have a look for yourselves. Then we come to today's actual spoilers. And yeah, there's quite a few, so we might as well get right into it. And there's some that I have been unable to not see because it was all over social media. Others that I haven't seen at all. There's some goodies. Let me just put it that way. So let's just start at the bottom. We've got Aki Ronin. There's a couple of these at 2 mana that are, have the same creature type. This one is a Goblin Samurai. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Remember, we got that guy yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yes, this guy. The 1 mana 2/2 with haste. This thing is going to be in every one of these samurai decks, for sure. Keep returning it to your hand, and at some point you can discard it to draw a card. So he can be the one doing the attacking alone for the first couple of turns while you build up your samurais. And every time he's going to be attacking, except for the first time, he's going to get some kind of triggers from the samurai that you play after him. And sorry, I don't know why the website sometimes does that. It just resets right down to the bottom. In this case, you could play this on turn 2 and then already attack with the other guy who's got haste. Oh wait, you couldn't. Because the other guy bounces back to your hand every turn. I guess it was going to be a little bit too strong if it didn't. But still, you can attack with the other guy. Then it returns to your hand. Next turn, you attack with it. You also play a 3-drop of one of these effects. And there's a really good one from yesterday. Ishin 2 Heavens as 1. If a creature attacking would cause a triggered ability to get twice. So there's going to be a lot of these like 1, 2, 3, 4 samurai into a samurai into a samurai, and there's always just going to be the one that you played the turn before attacking, because it's probably going to be the most big one, and the others staying still but giving the attacking guy all of their triggered abilities until eventually you build up into one big yeah, and probably putting some equipments and things on them. It's going to be super fun. This one, I don't know if it's going to see much play because having to discard a card, but that might be okay. Discard the stuff you don't need, maybe excess lands, that sort of thing, if you're flooding. And 3 toughness is alright. But this guy's a little bit more interesting because it's an enchantment creature, so that might be important in the deck to have this creature type. It's also a samurai though, and whenever you attack alone, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So it becomes a 3/2. A little bit more like aggressively statted if it's attacking alone the turn after it's played. Next up, we've got Dokuchi Silencer. 1 and a black with ninjutsu. That's also 1 and a black. And when it deals combat damage to a player, you may discard a creature card. If you do, destroy target creature or planeswalker that player controls. Aha. That's pretty nice. That's pretty nice, man. Just get rid of the most useless thing in your hand that you don't need in the matchup or whatever. And, or, you know, the legendary that you have 2 of or 3 of. You can just discard it and destroy a card, destroy a creature or planeswalker. I think that's pretty good. You know, if this ninjutsu deck is good, they'll probably just play a couple of these as a way to have like a removal spell on a creature. Oh, goodness, not again. Okay, not as far back down as last time. Where were we? Yeah. Next up is a really, really nice one. This one's in Italian. It's like the thermal hot springs or something. The invigorating hot springs. For Gruul, I think this is really good 3-drop. Instead of or alongside the Reckless Stormseeker, 1 red and a green for an enchantment. So it just sits on the board, harder to deal with. Although there'll probably be loads of enchantment removal in this format that's coming up. But still, it enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. And for the rest of the game, you know, as long as it's on the field, it says modified creatures you control have haste. Then you can at any point remove a counter from it and put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature you control. And sorry, not at any point. You can only activate this as a sorcery once per turn, which means you can play a creature and straight away at sorcery speed put a +1/+1 counter on it. Now it's modified, it gains haste. It's pretty nice little thing. Give like all the new creatures that you cast from turn 4 onwards for the next 4 turns a +1/+1 counter and haste as soon as they enter the battlefield. Well, not as soon as they enter the battlefield. You still have to like do it at sorcery speed, which is probably the biggest downside. But I still think it's a fun little card. I like it. I like it a lot. Next up, oh gosh, it's gonna keep doing this. No. I might just refresh the page after the next card. Or I can just tab into them. Haha. Rabbit Battery. A 1-mana artifact creature equipment rabbit with haste. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 in haste, and it has the cheap reconfigure cost of 1 red. That's pretty nice. Whatever Crikey says. But I think it's gas. Who? Yeah, that's not terrible. Because, you know, you play it on turn 1, you swing in for 1 straight away with haste. Boop, boop. Then you play your 2-drop, you swing in with both of them. Opponent's still like trying to set up things. Turn 3, you play another 2-drop and equip your 1-drop onto your turn 3 2-drop, and now you're swinging in with 2 2-drops or something like that. Still, it's nice. It's the cheap reconfigure cost makes it very nice. It's very easy to remove, of course, but I think it might see a little bit of play in with whatever this equipment deck ends up being. I like it. I like the flavor. This one also looks good as far as flavor, and it's a rare. Let's see what it is. The Ogre helmet. One and a red for an artifact creature equipment ogre. So it's another one of these equipments. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. Whenever Ogre helmet or equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. So do you sacrifice the Ogre helmet or the creature that's equipped to the, that the helmet's equipped to? But anyway, you sacrifice it, discard your hand, and draw 3 cards. Okay, well, I think the fact that it can be reconfigured means that probably when it's equipped to the creature, then the creature deals combat damage, then you sacrifice the creature that it's equipped to. Then if it's it doing the combat damage, then you can sacrifice it. Either way, it's not bad. It's kind of a typical red effect, similar to the Moonveil Regent. When you have a full hand, it's horrible. Because so how many times have you done that when the card just came out, where you hit the wrong button, and you discard your whole hand by mistake to the Moonveil Regent and scoop. But when you have an empty hand, you can just say yes every time, because there's nothing to discard, and so you're just getting a free card. The same as can be said of the Ogre helmet. You do this when you have an empty hand, then you just draw 3 cards, and all you're losing is a 2/2. Or, potentially you're just equipping it to a little one of your, I don't know, little dorks in red. A little devil token or something. So that's not a bad little card. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's really vying for position in a red deck right now. So in the 2-drop slot. So let's see. Next up, we've got Containment Construct. I've seen people raving about this on social media, but I haven't read it. Whenever you discard a card, you may exile that card from your graveyard. If you do, you may play that card this turn. Ooh. Okay. I can see why. It's obviously a really powerful effect. I'm just not entirely sure what I would do with it yet. Especially in Standard. I'm sure like the people that play Historic and other stuff are looking at this like, whoa. Because that's obviously a very powerful effect. Whenever you discard a card, you may exile that card from your graveyard. So, like, wow. That's crazy good. If you're, like, pitching stuff to, I don't know, Unexpected Windfall, discard it, you draw 2 cards, you get 2 treasures, and now you can also play the card that you discarded this turn. If this said until the next turn, it would be rare and busted as, but this is still a pretty powerful effect. I think it's gonna we'll try and figure out where to play it. Next up, here we go. Another Black Spirit. We've got a 3-mana 2/3 with Menace, and whenever Unforgiving One, Unforgiving One attacks, return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of modified creatures you control. That is sick. That is so sick. You can have even just like 2 or 3 modified creatures. And, you could be bringing back your Selfless Savior guy every time Unforgiving One attacks, and it's got Menace, so it's evasive. You could put some, modifications on it that makes it even harder to hit. Block. Maybe it's something that keeps flying, something that keeps, trample or grows it bigger, what have you. Epic. There's one of the disturbed auras that has flash and gives hexproof, and then comes back as an enchantment aura. I think that's gonna definitely start seeing play in this like potentially Esper Spirits deck that I've seen brewing in the future. Next up though, we've got Onda Seismica, Seismic Wave. 3 mana, 2 colorless and a red for an instant speed. Deal 2 damage to any target. and 1 damage to each non-artifact creature target an opponent controls. I wonder why they had to write that non-artifact in there. Thanks for the translator. Beware where you step, Imperial. Even Earth rebels against you. Bah. I don't know. I don't know about this. Whoops. I was definitely supposed to tab into that one. Sorry, I won't forget again. Next up, we've got the Springleaf Avenger. I have nothing much to say about this on the Seismica. It's meh. I think it's just meh. The Springleaf Avenger is a 5 mana, 6/5 insect ninja with ninjutsu 4, 3 colorless and a green. So significantly less than the casting cost. You're definitely always trying to ninjutsu this guy in, because at 5 it's just a bit of a meh, does nothing. But if it gets ninjutsued in for 4 and it deals combat damage to a player, you get to return a target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, which is pretty sweet. And then that just continues to happen. And what it has in its way of like, oh, don't block me, is it doesn't have menace, doesn't have flying, it's just a freaking 6/5. Whoever wants to, block this guy is probably going to die. And eventually he's going to start getting in for damage. And then that means you're returning stuff from your graveyard to your hand every time it gets in for combat damage. So that's pretty cool. I understand why it's expensive. Like, they couldn't make this any less expensive than ninjutsu. But therefore they couldn't make the casting cost, less than the ninjutsu cost. And so it ended up being 1 more. Pretty sweet little card. I love the art. Don't know about this green ninjutsu deck that we've been seeing. Like, I was expecting ninjutsu to just be on like black and blue cards, to be honest. But there's been quite a few ninjutsu cards in green. So we'll have to see. There might be some kind of Sultai ninjutsu deck. But next up, we've got the Dragon Spark Reactor. And there's a lot of cards like this right now in Standard, where like you build up charge counters, and then eventually you pay something, remove the charge counters, deal damage to any target. There's actually one that was just printed in Crimson Bow that's pretty cool. It's called the Geist something Bolt or something. And it's 3 mana though. However, its cost to do the thing is cheaper, but it is more versatile. It has multiple options. This one only has 1 option. But they had to give it an upside, because they must know people are comparing this card to that one. This one can deal damage to 2 things. So target player and target creature. So you can just have this on the board in your burn deck, sitting there, building up counters until it gets to whatever, 5, 6 counters, and then you just pay 4, sacrifice it, and you can deal that much damage to face and get rid of a creature. It's pretty cool, but what usually happens with these things is that you're like, ooh, just on the point of cracking it, and then the opponent just hits it with artifact removal, and you just wasted it. It doesn't ever really go off. But the fact that it's cheaper, and you can get it on the board a turn earlier than the current best one of these things in Standard, might make it playable in some burn deck. I'm definitely going to try it. But yeah, that's Dragon Spark Reactor. Next up, we've got Explosive Singularity. Yeah, nailed it. It's so similar to Italian. I'm cheating. So 8 mana and 2 red. So this must be one of those that you can reduce its cost in some way, like the white one. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may tap any number of untapped creatures you control. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature tapped this way. Explosive Singularity deals 10 damage to any target. Oh wow! So I actually saw this on Twitter. In the type of deck where this makes sense, you know, it's not going to be like big red where you're like ramping to 10 mana and you do 10 damage that way. This is going to be good in a like red weenies deck that goes really, really wide with lots of little 1/1s and 2/2s with haste and things. And you keep attacking, keep attacking, keep attacking until you either think your opponent's just about to hit you with a sweeper, or you know, he builds up enough of a creature blockers that you can no longer get through with your little 1 and 2 guys. So then, instead of attacking, you've now gotten them down to maybe 10. You tap all of your guys, reduce this down to, you can reduce this down to maybe, say you have 5 little goblins out. You tap them all, that makes this cost 3 for 5. You know, if you've got 5 goblins out, it might be turn 5. The opponent's usually at that point, it's that point where you might be able to turn the game around against goblins. Poof, you top deck one of these, and you just send 10 damage straight to face. It's like the ultimate. I think like a 2 of in goblins or something like that, where you go wide with little red guys. This might be pretty freaking sweet. I wonder what other people are saying. Convoke. Yeah, I'm okay, I guess. Here we go. Good in historic goblins. Someone else. Yeah. Creatures of the board, lend me your power. Kamehameha. Oh, nice. The website didn't reset us down to the bottom. Next up, we've got Flame Discharge. Another X red spell. Pay X and a red to deal X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If you control a modified creature as you cast a spell, it deals X plus 2 damage instead. I think that's freaking epic. I wish it could also go face. But I think in your equipped deck, and you need some removal, you're going to play this instead of something else. 100%. You can just scale it up into the late game, and you know, it'll always potentially do you know, a bit more damage, you know, more bang for buck. Absolutely. Definitely going to be a 4 of in your modified deck. Oh, it's getting cold. Next up, a nice little 1-drop for black. I've actually seen this on social media as well today. Dockside Chef. 1 mana, 1/2. Can pay 2, 1 in a black, without tapping. Sacrifice an artifact or creature. Draw a card. It's a 2 mana draw a card in your sack deck. Like, imagine your Decayed Zombies, or, you know, so I always go to that because it's a thing you always easily can sacrifice. But there's plenty of other ways that you can make sack fodder for this guy. Even just sacrificing your and in historic, there's plenty of. Imagine in a food deck in historic, I can imagine this guy just becoming a new, you know, player for sure. And I dig the art. The squirming is how you know it's fresh. It looks like a tongue over here and an eyeball. Lovely, just lovely. But yeah, definitely good card. Look out for this guy. A little bit of additional card draw in your black sack deck. Reactors or whatever. Next up, Rizona, Azari Commander. Another one is for the Samurai deck. Another 3-drop, which is important. I think it's going to be really important turn in that deck. I mean, it is in most decks, but like your 2-drop is going to attack and get the triggered abilities of your good 3-drop so that it can get through the opponent's either 3 or 2-drop without like either getting blocked or, you know. So it has to be a good effect. This one has haste, so it could be the thing attacking, which is cool. I was waiting to see one with haste. So you play it on turn 3, it attacks, and all your 1 and 2 drops trigger. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, if it doesn't have an indestructible counter on it, put an indestructible counter on it. Then it can just keep attacking. Oh, that's nice. However, whenever combat damage is dealt to you, you remove an indestructible counter from Rizona. So, wow. She can, if you can find a way to give her vigilance, she could like attack, get in, get the thing, then block anything that comes at it because it's indestructible. Also handles the removal, and those counters obviously stack. The more times you get in, the more of those indestructible counters you have on her. You know, every time you take the combat damage, you only just take 1 off. So you could potentially have her stay indestructible for a few times. You take damage before you can build up some defense or use some removal. I really like that, the card design, and the fact that it has haste. Very nice. And again, with the selfless savior guy, that you can like give something indestructible and lifelink. It's going to be, I think, a really sweet deck, this Samurai one. It's probably the one I'm most excited for now. Next up, we've got another fox, and it's a Kitsune. These are the tailed foxes. Look, it's got more than one tail. The Blade Blizzard Kitsune. Sick. 3 mana 2/2 with ninjutsu. It's got double strike. And that's it. You just flash it in, or, you know, ninjutsu it in for 4 mana. And it might just go boom, boom, and get the final 2 points of damage in. Like, you're going to have to block everything in this format. It's going to be insane. We're going to have to get, like... Wow. You're never going to know. Not blocking something is always going to be like... If there's any mana left open, it's going to make combat so much more exciting. I'm really, really looking forward for it. Go Shintai. Okay, the blue shrine. Go Shintai Lost Wisdom. A 2 mana 0/4. Nice little blocker. It's got flying. And at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. When you do, target player mills X cards, where X is the number of shrines you control. Okay. Okay. Thank goodness these things are legendary. Next up. Wow. This one's crazy. This one is insane. I also saw this one all over Facebook today. 6 mana. It's just called Farewell. Super trippy artwork. And you choose 1 or more. So I guess it's nice in that you can, if you have a whole bunch of creatures and the opponent only has enchantments, then you can only pick the one that, you know, you want. But if if it's beneficial to you, you can pick all of them, or, you know, 2 of them or 3 of them. So exile all artifacts, all creatures, all enchantments, all graveyard. It's just like reset button of note. Probably the most insane one we've had of late. There's a few like Undo Inversion and Grand Mastery or whatever that do similar things and destroy all permanents. But this doesn't get rid of lands, obviously. Neither do the previous 2 I mentioned, but this just gets rid of everything else. And it's not destroyed, it's exiled. Like unresurrectable, uninteractable with ever again. Bye-bye, GG. Reset button. I think in your, like, you know, Orzhov control deck or something, Azorius control deck, like as a one-of, as like a failsafe, when it's just insurmountable pressure, you can't get around it. A sweeper isn't going to do it because the opponent's got reanimation, shenanigans, whatever. You hit one of these things and it's just like Okay, now I can start attacking you with my Horde of the Storm Giants. So probably going to be really annoying to play against. It's kind of like it's the same price as a Blood on the Snow, you know? It's not going to be like, oh, so hard to cast. And if you don't, an aggro deck doesn't like get its game plan together by like turn 6, and this thing is in the format. The control decks are going to love this thing. So, yeah, yay. And especially because of the modularity, they can just say like destroy all creatures, and then they keep all of their like enchantments and things that they've laid out, and artifacts and whatever, and they keep their graveyard, but then all of your creatures are gone, exiled, and you have to rebuild your whole board. This is going to be aggro decks like nightmare. So beware of farewell, ladies and gents. Insane new card. Next up, we've got Randelli di Bronzo. So Randello is it's like a circular thing that you smash meat with. Club. I should have guessed that. Sometimes I can't translate my own two languages. A 1-mana equipment. Until end of turn, equipped creature gets +X+0, where X is the number of times this ability has been resolved this turn. Okay, so you can just pay 2, dump 2 into it. It doesn't tap, so you go 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So I guess they like you can have it on a creature, have it attack, and the opponent's like, ooh, do I want to block it? Don't I want to block it? If they block it, you just like dump all your mana into it, combat trick style, and like kill the thing. If you have a way to also give that creature first strike, it could make it really, really good. And it's a 1-drop. I can see why it's uncommon. It's not terrible at all. And the equip cost is really low. I think this is a really nice little equipment. Might see some play. Next up, what do we got? Ooh, we've got Automa Riassemblato. Reassembled automaton? Automation. Artifact creature construct with ward 2. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on reassembled automation. Nice. Like all the tribes or whatever have to have like one of these. It's nice always to have a thing that can grow based on whatever you cast after it. So you play it on turn 2, and then you start playing your artifacts, and it keeps getting bigger. And the fact that it has ward 2 is great because it's much harder to remove. It doesn't just get killed the moment it hits the board. And then, you can play a bigger threat. It's kind of the same just thing that I have with the Lunark. Oh my goodness. Is it the veteran? No, that's the life gain guy. You know, the guy with ward 1, the 1-drop with ward 1. It's in my ward tribal. Which is, by the way, giving me the best win rate at the moment. It's the deck that's performing the best in my quiver. Chaplain of Arms. That's who I was talking about. Has ward 1, and then you play, the opponent, even if they have like a Blood Chief's Thirst or something, they can't get rid of it. And then you play a more important thing on turn 2. So now they're like, oh god, I got to get rid of that thing. And then it sits on the board. It's harder to get rid of. And that's going to be the same thing with this. It sits on the board, and then by that point, you've cast a few artifacts, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you might have other ways of saving it, and it's now out of control. Quite a sweet little card. Definitely going to go in this artifacts deck, I think. Next up, Cami of Transients. So this is the one that I've been scrolling down to, that's like from that faded actual card picture that we got in the unconfirmed list way back down before spoiler season even officially kicked off, that I was talking about. And it's the same sort of thing as this, but for enchantments, but it's a little bit better, which is why it's rare. So not only is it a 2/2 for 2 instead of a 1/1 for 2, it has trample, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on Cami of Transients. Same as the, the automation guy here, but at the beginning of your end step, if an enchantment was put into your graveyard from the battlefield this turn, you may return Cami of Transients from the graveyard to your hand. So it's got this recursion, it can keep just coming back. And it's a spirit. That Sultai Spirits enchantment deck that I've been talking about. This is definitely going to be a 4 of, and I cannot wait to play with this card. It looks really fun. And there's the 1-drop guy that puts counters on things with your enchantments. Croakies seems to be like super meh on this type of deck. He reckons you need to have like, he reckons the ratios won't balance out. Like how many enchantments you need to have in your deck. How many creatures do you need to have in your deck on top of like removal and other things, so that you actually like get all of your enchantment synergies and blah blah blah. But I still think if it's a deck that's good with all these sagas and things, and it's starting to look like it, and this is one of the cards that makes that so getting there. Then Cami of Transients is definitely going to be a 4 of in that brew, in my opinion, and I can't wait to play this on day 1. Finally, we got the white channel land, guys. Iganjo, Seat of the Empire. And of course, it's the best one. It's better than the green one, in my opinion. I think this is freaking epic. I love this card. I love white as a color, and I think it's like great that it's the best one. So as usual, it's a legendary land. It comes and you can tap it for 1 white mana, and it always comes into play untapped. So you can just have, maybe 2 or I think in this case you can have 4 of them in your deck, and it doesn't matter because it's a really low casting cost, and you can discard it for 3, and it deals 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Goldspan Dragon, boom, 3 mana, instant speed. And it can be cost reduced if you have legendaries in play, so it could cost as little as 1 mana. Just a land that you have that can discard for as little as 1 mana and just deals 4 damage to an attacking, blocking creature. Epic, epic, epic card. These things are so overpowered. Like, I can't wait to play with them. But next up, we've got a card that is probably going to go in this Cami of Transients deck. So you play this on turn 3. You've got your turn 1 little spirit squirrel guy that puts counters on things when you cast enchantments. You play Cami of Transient on turn 2. On turn 3, you play Jugen, defends the temple. It creates so then triggers, you put +1/+1 counters on everything with your 1 and 2 drops, and you create a 1/1 green human monk creature token with tap, add 1 mana, so you're ramping again, because the next turn you can tap this little guy, and you have 4, and you potentially play a land, so you have 5 on turn 4, and then you put a +1/+1 counter on up to 2 target creatures, so you'd put, it being cast and coming into play puts counters on these guys already, and then the chapter 2 puts counters on the 2 guys again, and then it comes back, and when it enters the battlefield, okay, no, these are not enter the battlefield effect, they're cast effects as well as the first one. I think they did that because otherwise it would just be too much. You can get so many enchantments entering the battlefield in 1 turn that there would just be too many +1/+1 counters per turn going on these guys, so you have to cast the enchantment. So when the 3rd chapter, it's exile and then returns to battlefield, it's not being cast. So unfortunately, you won't get the trigger for that. But still, what you get is Remnant of the Rising Star, which is a 2/2 flyer. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay X. When you do, you put X +1/+1 counters on that creature. And then as long as you control 5 or more modified creatures, Remnant of the Rising Star gets +5/+5 and has trample. So you just keep playing these little enchantments. Your Cami of Transient isn't even legendary. You can have multiples on the board. You can quite quickly get to having 5 modified creatures, and then boom, this thing just becomes a freaking 7/7 with flying and trample. I think this is freaking busted. I cannot wait to play this. Like mono green enchantress, like aggro, +1/+1 counters. We can have like 8 1-drops. You even play the Swarm Shambler guy that gives your +1/+1 counters guys pseudo protection. And the little squirrel dude. Ooh. Amped. Oh, and then there's that guy that gives all your modified things trample. The one that's been completing a 5 card cycle. That's been a long time in the making. I can't remember the name now. But... And that's a 4-drop, so that could just come right after this. Ooh. Okay, never mind. I'm getting ahead of myself. Next up, we've got the Long Reach of Night. It's another one of these MDFC sagas. This time it's an uncommon at 4 mana, 3 colorless and a black. Each opponent sacrifices a creature unless they discard a card. Happens for 2 law counters, and then it comes back as a 0/4 with menace. And whenever it attacks, it gets +X/+O until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in the defending player's graveyard. Huh. So your opponent, plays a creature deck. You get him to discard all of his creatures on, and they're either sacrificing one or discarding one. And then, this guy comes back. It's a great little blocker with 4 booty. And then you can start swinging in with menace for however many. Oof, that's pretty nice. That's actually really nice. And it's a black spirit. And it's an enchantment. Getting excited. It's 1 week exactly, guys. 6 days, actually. We're 6 days away. Next up, we've got a red MDFC saga. Kumano faces Kakazan. 1 mana. Uncommon. Interesting. A red 1-drop saga. It deals 1 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control. Cool. Cool. I like that it goes face. And then because this could just win you the game in some situations. And then when you cast your next creature spell this turn, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Really freaking cool. And then when it comes back as Etching of Kumano, a 2/2 with haste. And if a creature dealt damage this turn by a source you controlled would die, exile it instead. What? Wow, this is a sweet little 1-drop. That is a sweet little 1-drop. And you don't want to be playing it on turn 1. You could, but the opponent isn't going to have any planeswalkers on turn 1. On turn 1 it's still good, because then your turn 2 player gets a +1/+1 counter on it, and then you just get, on turn 3 you get this guy, and you start attacking straight away because it has haste. But if you get if you do top deck it in the late game, then the 1 damage to a planeswalker might be really nice. Pardon me. Next up, Invoke the Ancients. So finally completing the cycle. Here's the green one. Let's see how busted it is. I've been waiting for this. So again, same casting cost as the others. 1 colorless and 4 of the color. Sorcery speed. Ooh. Create 2 4/5 green spirit creature tokens. For each of them, put your choice of a vigilance counter, a reach counter, or a trample counter on it. Okay, in the spirits deck again. They're spirits, it's green. For 5 mana, you get 2 4/5s, and you can put reach on the one and trample on the other, or trample on the one and vigilance on the other. That is so good, man. That is like such a stabilizer. And you're like losing to a creature deck, you just play this, you get like such good blockers. 4/5s. And then you can pick, you know, oh, look, it's Goldspan Dragon deck. Let's put Reach on one of them. Now I can block Goldspan and not die. That's freaking epic. And, you know, on turn 5 is when you play Renin 7. And she just makes 1 counter. And she costs 5 mana. This is the same cost as Renin 7. You get 2. Okay, they don't get bigger next turn. But wow. Wow. And I love the artwork. All right, so definitely going to try that one again on day 1. March of Swirling Mist. Okay, a blue card with X in its casting cost. Okay, so it's the thing where you exile cards from your hand. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may exile any number of blue cards from your hand. The spell will then cost 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. So you declare X first, then you can reduce the casting cost after and discard or exile your hand. And then up to X target creatures phase out. While they're phased out, they're treated as though they don't exist, blah, 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 blah. Cool. Cool. I like it. Actually been looking for things like this. There's currently the spirit guy. What's it called again? Flash it in, phase out your squad. You survive the sweeper. The spirit doesn't. I think Guardian of Faith is the name. There's also the newish 2-drop spirit in blue that has flash. The adversary, the blue adversary, that you can phase things out and save them from sweepers or targeted removal. But that's it. So another one of those effects in a deck like that, where you're trying to like maybe tempo plays, just keep your stuff on the board through the opponent's removal. Phase out can be a way of doing that. And this is pretty easy to do, like lots of creatures. You can have like 4 mana and phase out 3 creatures. If you had to use the other ones that I just mentioned, well, in the first case, the Guardian of Faith, it always dies to the sweeper because it doesn't phase out itself. Whereas in the second case, you could, if you have like 1,000,000 mana, also phase out the blue adversary, as well as the other things you're trying to save in the sweeper example. But most of the time, it also dies to the sweeper. In this case, you can just save your stuff, all your guys from a sweeper at instant speed. And, in a pinch, you can just exile stuff from your hand if you don't have enough mana and just do it that way. And you saving your whole squad might mean that the next turn, your opponent, finally hit that sweeper. He's going to wipe the board. Whew. Survive and start getting back at you, the control deck. You just March of Swirling Mist, who cares? Exile my whole hand, doesn't matter. Save my 3 creatures that I have on the board. Or, I have 4 mana open. Save my 3 creatures I have on the board. Next turn, I swing in and I win the game. I think that's really nice in a tempo deck. I am gonna definitely be playing this in like my spirits, maybe a Saurius spirits. Next up, Colossal Sky Turtle. 4 colorless, 2 green, and 1 blue for an enchantment creature turtle that is a 6/5 and it has flying and ward 2. Okay, I guess you're never casting this really for the flying. I mean, I guess if you get it in the late game, you just play this big silly 6/5 that has ward 2, so it might not get straight away removed, and then you can attack in for 6 flying the following turn. But I think it's probably mostly in here for its channel abilities. You can either channel 3, 2 colorless, 1 green, discard it, return target creature card. Target card from your graveyard. Any card. So it's Balaged recovery on a creature, or you can return target creature to its owner's hand. So two exactly the right costed things that would, you know, usually require you to play a different card in your deck, like a Into the Royal or a Barliget Recovery, but that are now stapled onto a 6/5 flyer with Ward 2. That costs, yes, a lot, but I can see why they gave it uncommon. That's not absolutely totally terrible. It's probably not going to see much play, but it's not terrible. Alrighty, one last refresh. Let's see if there's anything new. It's 3 a.m. where I am. Nah, nothing new. So that's going to be it for today's video. Lots of crazy new cards. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, like which one was your favorite from today's spoilers. I am a huge fan of this Gruul haste enchantment thing here. I'm really excited to see about, you know, the possibilities of what could happen with the containment construct. This is crazy. Let's see if it works. Riona, man, Farewell was also bonkers powerful. A Ganja, wow, what a card. I mean, so many good ones today. It's hard to pick. I would probably, though, still say that if I had to pick my favorite card of the day, it would have to go to Cami of Transients. It's just my type of thing. And yeah, probably second place to Jugan Defends the Temple. Really, really liking this card. All right. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of Spoiler Talk. I will see you all tomorrow with some fresh brews. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks again. And this is Lone Fox from the Brew-Lab, signing out. Peace, y'all.